Wow, Jack, welcome back to another episode of the Colin Thompson Show. Jack and I were just debating off air, just Philly sports fans, Philly media. Oh, man, got the Not For Long Media hat on today. Check them out, guys, on our website, notforlongmedia.com. Sweet new logo we're really jacked up about, and we're selling our old hats on there as well. I think they're still up there. We're selling Breaking Bats hats. We got some cool Columbia stuff up there still, but that's, we're improving the online store, having some fun. Jimmy Morrissey's joining us today. I interviewed Jimmy a couple weeks ago. Houston Texans offensive lineman, LaSalle High School, walked on at Pitt. What an amazing story Jimmy has. He's become a great friend and someone who I really enjoy spending time with in our kind of football bubble and kind of the Bucks County, Montgomery County bubble. Jersey Shore bubble, that kind of group that I've met some people in and lucky enough to been hang out with. So he's a warrior. He works his ass off. I've trained with him down in Jersey Shore before. Hanley Strength Systems, shout out Kate May. Best gym down the shore if you really actually legit want to train other than doing upper body jack to look good on the beach. So yeah, there's a lot to discuss. I mean, Jack and I are going to dive right into it. We're talking about this before about free agency. And again, everything we do here is brought to you by the Fudge Kitchen, fudgekitchens.com, shipping fudge and sweet treats across the country. Love you, Fudge Kitchen. The original Fudge Kitchen locations, Ocean City, all the way down to Cape May. And if you can't get there, ship it. Why not? No more flowers that die in a couple of days. Fudge is the gift that keeps on giving. Jack and I were talking on here before. I think there's this uproar. Again, I'm in Philly. We're from Philly, and there's a Philly media. I'm friends with a lot of the guys that are in it. Some friends on the Eagles team, Sean Bradley, Hassan Reddick. So follow the team, right? And again, I'm from the area. Supporter, never was a fan per se, but a supporter probably because of what my profession is. And it's just crazy. People are freaking out that players from a Super Bowl team, or, say they didn't go to the Super Bowl, say they lost in the first round, say they didn't make the playoffs, that the roster is being flipped over. Every year at a certain point, coaches in a team meeting will say, guys, this is the last time this group's going to be together. And some of them are in there saying, I know I'm going to be back, and they're not back. Some are sitting there saying, I'm definitely not back, but they end up coming back. Or you have guys like me this year in Carolina, like, man, I hope I'm back here. We'll see. I'm 50-50. I'm not back there right now. But my point is, that's a real situation with this league. Whether you're a Pro Bowler, whether you're the last player on the roster, practice squad, doesn't matter. It's all about salary cap. It's all about draft capital. It's all about the business of football. And the uproar by Eagles fans, and I personally, Eagles media, some Philly media, that are shocked that players are leaving, getting paid, or players are leaving. That's what happens. This is the NFL. You're going to look around the room with 90 people in the middle of beginning of training camp, end of OTAs when the draft, after mandatory mini camp, and all the players from the draft are there, and the undrafted players. There's going to be 90 people. And 45 of them weren't in the room last year. That's how it goes. I just don't understand how people are just befuddled. Where are these players going? They don't want to be in Philly or whatever it may be. It's like, what? They all want to be there. It's just how it goes in free agency and the draft and things like that. I'm talking about fans and media here, guys. Yes, you're going to lose good players. Every team, every single year loses good players. That's how the league's designed. So everyone calm down. If you were an Eagles fan, you have multiple first-round picks, multiple draft picks. You have a GM who's super aggressive and smart throughout the draft, trades for players during the middle of the draft, i.e. A.J. Brown. So I think everyone should just calm down a little bit and stop being Twitter warriors of, look at all the starters the Eagles have lost. Let's pile on here. It's like, come on. So what say you, the great Philly media member, Jack Connell?
I mean, at the end of the day, I'll be quite honest. I feel like a lot of people that I talked to or I saw at least understood that a lot of these guys were going to be parting ways. I mean, it got to the point where I feel like people were rational about Darius Slay departing. Well, myself, I mean, I kind of detached myself, but
He's not. He's back.
Oh, I'm just saying people made peace with, they get it. They get why he was moving on or why Philly was planning to move on from him. But, I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, simple math. The Eagles had a gargantuan amount of free agents. Usually a team has 10, 15. They had 25 high-profile free agents, it seemed like, and they had limited cap. I mean, that's just what happens when you have a quarterback that's expecting a well-deserved massive extension. And you have 2 first-round picks that are also going to take up cap space that they could allot. I mean, I think they did a tremendous job of keeping everybody out. Now, I think I said before, I don't understand the salary cap. I try to, and the more I try to understand, I understand less. And they were able to pay Bradbury, Slay, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. I don't know how they were able to pay everybody, but they brought back a lot of the key guys that they were expected to bring back. And a lot of the guys that left, they have people for. So Isaac Seumalo left to join Pittsburgh and be a big piece of their offensive line. They've got Cam Jurgens ready to go. TJ Edwards walks, and so is Kaiser White. They got Nakobe Dean stepping up. I mean, they've got guys in each of these spots where they have draft picks to fill in each of these spots. Safety, they got Reed Blankenship, who is an incredible undrafted free agent. So they'll be fine. I think everybody kind of expects them to be fine. It's just Philly, the sky's falling for like 5 minutes, they'll be fine.
They'll probably trade back one of the picks, get another second-round pick, get another first-round pick next year. And it's just a rinse and repeat of how it's done at an elite level. New England did it for years. Kansas City did it for years. I'm still doing it, both those franchises, right? Eagles, you just see it, right? Like the Saints, like for years, are drafting like good offensive. Like it's just, you just see, if you follow football, like who drafts well. And even if you don't draft well in this league, you can either make trades or you can sign guys in free agency and have a ton of success. So relax. That's all I'm saying. Like this, we don't even bring this up usually because it's like awkward for me as someone I'm a free agent, but wants to sign somewhere here soon, hopefully will. Here's some good things too, Jack, which gets me kind of excited, by the way. I haven't told you that, but that's neither here nor there. We'll leave the guests hanging on that one. But breaking news now. We'll break the news on Not For Long Media, though. We're going to be, when I sign somewhere, hopefully I do, we'll break the news on Not For Long. We'll get some
If Shefty finds out before me, we will have some serious problems.
Imagine if I text Adam and he's like, congrats, man. He doesn't like tweet it.
He's just, dude, I will say, when we were still, obviously we knew each other. We weren't that close. The double take I had, I think it was because with COVID, you signed them. When I got the Shefty notification, I'm like, wait, him? Like, obviously you were all different, but like, I was just shocked that it was you.
So for those that are listening that don't know what's going on, I got cut at the end of the 2020 training camp with the Carolina Panthers. This was the COVID year, no preseason games. And, I was bummed. I was kind of shocked. We only kept 2 tight ends. That is thin in the NFL. Most teams keep 4, 3 and a fullback, 4 or 5, 6. Some teams keep somehow, some way. Practice squad, whatever. I didn't even sign on the practice squad. And they called me and said, listen, we're cutting you because we need some guys to put on IR, et cetera. We don't think you get claimed because there wasn't a lot of interest for me at the time. I was like out of the XFL, and Carolina and a few other teams were only teams that really touched base with me. And we didn't play the preseason game, so you couldn't see development of players that year. So that year helped some people out or hurt some people that couldn't get exposure. But it helped me out because I had a really good training camp in Carolina, good enough to be there. And they signed me back like 3-4 days after roster cuts. Not even. Maybe, 48 hours, I think it was. And, I'm thinking like local Panther beat writers pick it up. Adam Schefter tweets it. Colin Thompson signs to the Panthers active roster. First off, thank goodness, publicity-wise, that it was not on, normal. I would never, ever, ever get that tweet from Adam, from Ian Rappaport, these big guys. Now Pat McAfee, he put out the Adam Thielen signing. So that was a cool day, Jack. It was. Trust me, even for me, like I was very excited, of course, my first time making an active roster. But to make it and then Adam Schefter tweets it, that's a big deal. So that's what Jack's talking about. And Adam is a friend of the show and is so cordial and so nice. And obviously you have his contact now for coming on the show. I'll text him, hey man, doing great on the show tonight. Gets back to you right away. So just everybody thinks he's like looking at his phone, like for breaking news. He'll just text you right back. I mean, him and Kenny Albert are unbelievable. Kenny Albert, again, friend of the show. I'll listen to one of the games he's calling on the national broadcast for football or hockey, or he does everything. And he gets right back too. He's like, yeah, between commercial breaks, boom, I'll send a text. I love that stuff.
And with Adam Schefter, I mean, with the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, I think the thing that shocked people the most is when he showed that text, he had 4 unread texts. Like people expect like 700, 800. I mean, that just only further proves your point.
That's what Mike Golick Jr. said. Exactly, Jack.
Yeah.
He gets back to you. Mike Golick, by the way, Mike Golick Jr. on Twitter is electric. If you're not following him on Twitter and you're a Twitter person, you are going to laugh your ass off. I texted him one day, or I talked to him on the show here when last time he was on, and I'm like, Mike, how do you come up with this shit? Like, he is boom. He is. I mean, he is hysterical. Like, there's no rhyme or reason. He's just hits it. He's just so funny and he's so witty. He's like knows what's going on in pop culture too, and I don't know anything about pop culture, but I know this: Fudge Kitchens is the best freaking place to buy your fudge, and your best place to go to happy hour. That is Shots and Giggles in Key West, Florida. Shots and Giggles, the premier local fun, good ass time, right behind Sloppy Joe's, right in the heart of Key West. It's a great place to escape when you're on Duval Street and you need a break from the chaos. Right off it, one block. Go back there and Street, and just go hang out with Danielle, Ashley, Steve, Hanya, the awesome bartenders and staff there. Just killing it at Shots and Giggles Key West, the best premier locals bar. All the games are on in season. It's my favorite place to watch the game. Watch Super Bowl there every year. Be there next year. Tickets already booked. Jack's trying to weasel his way into that trip already. See the eyebrows popping. So,
it was more the fact that there's a chance you could be in the Super Bowl.
Well, listen,
big tickets elsewhere.
Here's what I do, Jack. And like, if you do that, like, I don't, okay, there's a lot to unpack there because we had a camp last year and it was the week before the Super Bowl. And there's some planning that goes into that, right? Like if your team's in the playoffs and you're having a camp, like maybe a week or two after your team loses, like, it's kind of sketchy to put on out there. So I put it out right after our season ended in Carolina, that, hey, we're having a camp and trying to get kids there, right? Like we had 100 something kids. It was an unbelievable success. Thank you to everybody who helped. Shots and Giggles sponsored it. We had 25, 30 sponsors. I mean, it's unbelievable camp, raising money for some awesome causes and free camp for kids that kids don't have anything down there. People don't realize it. The locals kids. So, or any of like things like that, people come into town and having camps and all. It's kind of the end of the road. People vacation there and leave, right? So, as you guys know, part-time local there. So, where am I going with the story, Jack? Christ almighty. Oh, yeah. So, I always book the trip. I always book the camp. And if I make the Super Bowl, I'll gladly cancel everything. Right? Like, I cancel it. These flights, no problem. I'll eat for $400 or $500. You're going to the Super Bowl? Not a problem. But if I'm not there, 2 out of 32 make it, then hey, I want to make it. It's my goal in life. It's to win a Super Bowl. Ever since the day my mom took me to the Giants parade and I saw Eli Manning holding up a freaking Lombardi trophy in front of my face when I was like 10. And my eyes like felt like going to fall out of my head. I'm like, whatever that takes to do that, I'm going to do it. I know it's corny, but it's true. It's a huge part of my kind of visionary in life and get me through tough times of football. So I digress. Lots to talk about on the show today. What do you think about March Madness, Jack? First off, let's talk about your freaking jersey. I got to bring it up because you put it on today for me to ask you, so I got to ask you about it. Can you tell the fans, those that are listening, driving to, Dover for work, or, God bless our listeners that are, in Carolina, driving to Lake Norman for a day out with the family and they got the show on. Tell them about your infamous 80 jerseys you owe from this man from Oregon.
Well, listen, I mean, I like your flatter that I wore for your show. I've been wearing this all morning. I wore this on the wonderful Ross Tucker football podcasts, streaming on all platforms. Anyways, so I'm rocking one of my 2 Marcus Mariota Oregon jerseys, just to celebrate the fact that 2014 me is ecstatic beyond belief that we finally got our guy. Our franchise quarterback is here in 9 years later to be a tremendous backup for Jalen Hurts, but I don't know. I was a stereotypical, trying to think, 2014, that's 13, like 7th grade, stereotypical middle schooler who loved Oregon and their flashy jerseys and hurry up offense and flashy plays. So I was just an Oregon guy. So there's really no reason to. I don't really have much college football affiliation anymore. I liked Michigan in high school just because I hated Ohio State. And that was really it. So I haven't worn this in a while.
Why'd you hate him?
I hate Ohio State because they beat Oregon in the national championship. And then my hatred of Ohio State just grew more than just because they beat Oregon. I don't know why. It just grew from there. I have no issue against them now. I got no issue against any school, but
trying to get a job. It's good. Good job, Jack. Okay. March Madness. What are your thoughts?
I did terrible. I mean, I got one of my Final Fours left, and luckily it's the team that I still have winning it all, Kansas State. I'm going to be honest. In previous years, like high school, early college, I was big in March Madness. I really didn't watch much during the season, but I would study a bunch like the week before, like everything, like that selection Sunday around then. But I just took a random guess this year. I kind of method my madness. I don't allow a certain amount of seeds to make it far, and like I try to pick upsets accordingly. And I picked a couple. I picked Princeton. I had Penn State winning, but I had Virginia, Kansas, and Indiana in my Final Four alongside Kansas State. And Kansas State still remains strong. Go Wildcats. We'll see. I don't know how's your bracket doing.
Let's see. I'm looking at it now. I am not doing that hot. I'm doing okay. I got Houston. I'm okay. I'm still alive there. I'm just putting along. This is what my madness is every year. You know, my method to my madness, I should say. Not March Madness. Method to the madness. I will read an article or two on The Athletic and see who's upset, who's this, who's that. And then I just got lucky. I watched Jim Boeheim on Part of the Interruption. And he went off and said, I like Furman, I like Duke, I like 2 other upsets. And he nailed it. I just picked him too. So thank you, Jim. Thank you, Athletic. And I'm like in contention and doing really well. And I'm in great shape. Now I had Duke going to my Final Four. Obviously that's no good. But that part of my bracket shot. But you know how it is. You just got to get the teams to the Final Four. That's where the real weight is. So I get 3 out of the 4 to the Final Four. I'll be happy. I think I have UConn going. So I like their team. So we'll see. It's a lie, but that's how I do it, Jack. I like certain conferences. I always pick the Big 12. I think they're loaded. Obviously, Baylor lost. There's some great stories. I really wanted FDU to win last night. I think the refs did. I think the whole nation did. They got some studs, man. That point guard is holy shit quick. And it's been great. I mean, every year you're like so excited for it, but I'm like, you know what? I didn't watch a lot of college basketball this year. Like, am I going to get into this? And then boom, Thursday's on. I'm like ready to go. I'm like, can we go out to the bar? Can we go watch the game? Like, I'm like Jones and especially with St. Patty's Day. Like, it's just, to me, it was like perfect storm for fun. So watch the games, had a great time. Terps lost, so that's a big deal here in Maryland, but they hung tough at least a little bit. Yeah, always fun. I mean, you can't beat it. I think too, and I listen to Coward, I'm listening to a couple different people. They're just talking about how well NIL has been for college basketball. And if you look around the landscape, it really has. I think 13 different states are represented in the Sweet 16, 11 different conferences. Pretty sure. If I heard that stat correctly earlier. I mean, just amazing, spread out. And maybe that's been like that before, but Coward went from like West Coast, like San Diego State, UCLA, Gonzaga, like there's that. Then there's like the Midwest and the South in it, and UConn and Princeton are in it. Like the whole country's covered. You'll never find that in college football. And that's what he said. I thought that was really interesting and a really good point. And that's why he's my favorite, in the business. He breaks things down a little bit more than just like sports talk radio. I really enjoy his show, but I just think some great points, like the transfer window. Like Penn State's got 3 kids from the Philadelphia area, South Jersey, that transferred in. One, and Andrew Funk, who's an Archbishop Wood graduate, who had 27, I believe he had the first night when they won. Jack and I picked him to win. That was an upset. And the 3 transfers, I mean, Penn State goes from really a bottom of the Big Ten basketball club to now like really kind of should have hung with Texas, should have won. And would have been in the Sweet 16. So that's like a really big deal for a Penn State program that's trying to turn its way around. And NIL and the transfer portal, boom, your team's right in it. So, yeah, of course, there's some things that need to change. Again, Coward today said there should be some guardrails. I think that's a really good way. You don't need walls, right? But like there should be like this is how it should go with transfer portal, NIL. But like some people hate it, some people love it, but lean into it and embrace it because man, oh man, oh man. One, March Madness, it gets better every year, right? Like just chaos, and Furman and FDU, and that FAU team looks good. So it's really going to be fun. I'm excited to see it. Shout out to Andrew Funk from Archbishop Wood, a record-breaking night for him. But again, I think it's really good stuff out of college basketball, NIL, and transfer portal. Hey man, don't hate the player, hate the game, and the game is really good product right now, at least in college basketball. So that's my thought. How about Ross Tucker, man? His Princeton. I mean, he must be freaking out, Jack, huh?
Oh, he is through the roof excited. He couldn't believe it. And he had Bruce Springsteen tickets that he had gotten for at concert at Penn State. So he had to be checking on his phone for the second round game. But we went out to PJ Wheelahands down here, And
shocker. Another chain with boneless wings. Great.
what did you see? Speaking of boneless wings, I hate to. Did you see the lawsuit that I had sent you? I didn't know you moved to Chicago and you filed a lawsuit.
They're chicken tenders. They're chicken nuggets. They're not boneless wings. It's a money grab. Think about it. We're just going to make them smaller, bread them, and what? It's not a wing. It's not a wing. Jason Kelsey agrees with me. That's all I care about. I'm fine.
Yeah, but we were watching.
And also, now that his name's up, and I'm sorry, Jack, Harry and Jason were like questioning him that he's still playing at a high level because he's older. On Geez, one of our rival shows. No, one of our shows on Not For Long Media. They're like, oh, like can't hold on players too long. I'm like, the guy's all pro. No matter how old you are.
Best center in football this past season.
And the year before. Hot takes revealed. I don't know about that one. We'll talk about that later. Continue. We got to have Harry and Jason. Have them on the show to defend themselves. Sorry, Jack. Go. PJ Willihan's. What a time. What a support local business. They're a freaking chain, Jack. They're a freaking chain.
Well, PJ Willihan's has the beauty of a large chain is they have 45 televisions that you can watch from. Bar of the week, they'd have 5 out of 5 TVs. But we were watching like 4 games plus the Sixers and Pacers game going on. I'm like, we were waiting to get seated. Princeton just continued to pull away. I'm like, oh my God, like they're actually going to do this. I couldn't believe it when they were up like 12 with like 3-4 minutes ago, like that they were actually going to win. And of course, then there was that. And then all my friends were getting pissed off at that because that was the game that was holding up Penn State, Texas. Because whatever channel was on TBS.
The Penn State Abington watch party taking on PJ.
We had no Abington, actually. It was no Penn State affiliates.
None. No main campus folks either, huh?
No, it was all Susquehanna and other places.
Oh, wow. You were there.
Yeah. Well, I was rooting for Princeton, Kansas State.
I bet you were. I was rooting for Temple basketball, and too bad they're not in it. And that's where I'm going to move forward and move forward with, I should say. Again, SeatGeek, guys, going to a game this year. Promo code Colin Thompson, COLINTHOMPSON. Can't even spell my own name. SeatGeek, $20 off, tickets $50 or more. How are ya? Help us help you and get yourself some tickets from SeatGeek. Promo code Colin Thompson. Som Sleep, get better sleep. Promo code Colin, COLIN. Natural magnesium products put you to sleep, keeps you asleep, gets you up, rise, kick ass, no groggy BS in the morning you got to deal with like you're taking other stuff. I love it. Changed my career. Som Sleep, check them out. I drink sugar-free. Promo code Colin. Hook yourself up, 10% off. I digress and I move forward. Temple basketball relieved Aaron McKee, legendary Temple player, 76er, alum of Temple, obviously, from his duties, which is sad. We never want to see anybody get fired. I was so excited when he got the job. I've still been a fan while he had the job. Temple basketball, legendary. Temple's no more for basketball than football, times 10. Obviously, with what Coach Chaney has done there and previous coaches, Fran Dunphy and Aaron, because they beat the number 1 team in the country this year in Houston. They only have a handful of losses. So there were some good moments, but there were some obviously not so good one, and he was relieved of his duties. He's going to stay on as a special advisor. Wish him nothing but the best. Huge fan of Coach McKee. So I'm sitting around the other day, and I'm thinking to myself, who does Temple hire, right? The budget, this is not in Kentucky, right? You can't just go out and boom, pluck somebody. It's Temple. There has to be a substantial value in Temple when it comes to, do I value that place as a coach? Temple, it's not an easy place to go to work. It's not an easy place to go to school. It breeds a certain graduate, a certain alumni base, and a certain group of people that truly love that place and how special it is, and how special the people that are work there, live around there, on campus, off campus, alumni, in the city. It's an awesome place. I love my time there. There's been tough times there. Athletically, worldly, around campus, whatever the word may be, not the best times. But there's bright light shining in certain places, especially athletically, and that's what I could speak on here today. If I'm Temple, I'm calling 2 people. I think the first person I'm going to read the resume probably won't take the job, has been offered many many of jobs and is very happy where he is. Resume 1, 1,179 wins to 155 losses, 11 national championships, 8 Naismith Coach of the Years, and he's in the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2006. He was born in Italy, came over with his whole family. Norristown, Pennsylvania, grew up. Bishop Kenrick High School is where he went. He went to Montgomery County Community College. Met his wife. Started a family. Went to Westchester. Graduate. Went back to coach at Bishop McDevitt, which no longer exists, just closed a couple years ago. Shout out to Mrs. Sheridan. He coached her on the JV basketball team. Helen, great lady. He went to become a carpenter, bartender, worked at a grocery store, all by coaching high school basketball before going to St. Joe's and then going back to his alma mater to coach the boys basketball team. Guy's Philly through and through. And I think that needs that type of person to take that Temple job. You have to understand the value of the job. If you're from out on the West Coast or you're from the middle of nowhere, you may not understand and value what Temple has. I.e., Coach Drayton, perfect fit for Temple. Coached all around the city. I know he coached at Penn and another school in Philly, has Philly ties, knew a bunch of the Coach Rule, Coach Collins, Al Golden, Adazio staff members, has some of those, a lot of them on his staff now, which I think is what it takes, familiarity. This is not just a plug-and-play bubble school. You need the right people there for it to have success. Coaches, stability. That's resume 1. That's Gino Auriemma. He's not taking the job, right? Because he's probably been offered bigger men's jobs. But I would reach out to him and see if there's something there that he'd be interested in. If I was Villanova last year, I would have reached out to him. You know, I'm sure they had a great interim head coach that stepped in. They had a down year this year. People say it's Jay Wright. It's not. I don't know. I think it's, to me, I'm all about the players. I'm all about the players. Okay. So I don't know if Gino takes the job. I think Villanova should have called him now that I think about it. Hopefully Temple could call him. That's who I'd give a call to. My second call, probably my first call, because this would be a very, very realistic situation, in my opinion. This is life-changing, life-altering, world-changing, record-breaking. Resume 2. Hall of Fame basketball player, professionally, collegiately, and a Hall of Fame coach. He's a first-round pick as a player, 2-time national championship as a coach, 572 wins to 185 losses. 2-time Naismith Coach of the Year. Born and raised in Philly, went to Dobbins Tech, where she was the National High School Player of the Year. She coached women's basketball at Temple before she went to South Carolina. That's Dawn Staley. If I'm Temple, the administration, Dawn, this is the athletic director at Temple University. This is the president at Temple University. This is our biggest alumni at Temple University. I'm not, but if somebody much, much bigger says, hey, let's change the world. And it has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that that blind resume, and you don't know who that is, I'm hiring that person to be the basketball coach at Temple. They also would break down major boundaries as the first, probably female, I'm assuming, to be the Division I basketball coach. She definitely is. And secondly, she's from Philly, already coached at Temple, knows what it's about, knows what it could be, knows about living in the city of Philadelphia, knows about the community, how to help it, how to impact it, how to recruit locally, foreign, whatever it may be. So Gino and Dawn, they're my first 2 calls if I'm the AD and the president of Temple. And I'm having a big alumni call them too and say, hey, listen, guys, let's change the world. Let's put Temple basketball back where it needs to be, back in the March Madness every single year, competing for conference championships every single year. Houston's leaving the conference. UCF's leaving the conference. Cincinnati's leaving the conference. Now's the chance. Temple's got to step on the gas. They have in football. They have in other sports. They're doing a great job with their facilities. The programs are in the right direction. But basketball obviously is not. I would give Dawn a call. I think she'd entertain it probably more than Gino. Gino's probably on his way out, maybe. Who knows? He's getting older. And again, I know Dawn's in her 50s. She's no spring chicken herself. She may want to go retire and be on a beach after winning like 3 or 4 more national titles. I don't blame her. But to me, if you're Temple, you got to hire somebody that knows the program, knows what it takes, knows Philly, because And I don't feel that everywhere else. Back to like the Flyers, everyone wants to hire these former Flyers to run the organization. Well, a lot of organizations are ran by former players. That's kind of normal. But they have a GM situation here, right? Danny Briere is the current GM. Interim. Do you hire him? He's a former player. Well, yeah, I think you do. The guy's got a ton of familiarity. He's got a great resume leading up to this as a player and as GM, and went back to school. Listen to that on OGs. They broke that whole thing down. They did a great job, Harry and Jason. But my point is, there's certain places there needs to be familiarity, and there's certain places that are big bubble schools, Penn State, Texas, Florida. They don't need any familiarity. South Carolina, you just go pop up and go coach. A little bit helps, sure. Win over some fans, help with local recruiting. But at the end of the day, if you want to coach a Temple and play a Temple, you have to have some sort of roots there, in my opinion, to have success. All of those coaches that came through the football tenure all had some sort of roots to the Northeast, connection to Temple, or really good programs in the area. So long-winded, but I'm calling Gino, I'm calling Dawn in no particular order. And I'm saying, hey, Gino, let's do this thing. All right, great. Yes or no? I would call Dawn first. Dawn, let's do this thing. Let's break boundaries. Let's set records, and we want you to do it. So long-winded, Jack. What are your thoughts?
Listen, I'm all for the most talented people. I know nothing about college basketball. Like I said, it seems like Dawn Staley's a tremendous option for the coach. I'd be all for it. I did not know that I am also of the same alum as Gino Auriemma, partially. So that was a cool factoid. I had no idea he was a Philly-based guy. But
what do you mean?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Well, I went to Montco for 2 years. He went to Montco.
Oh,
so.
Wow.
Just two guys that are the exact same, just greatest women's college basketball coach of all time, and me. I think we're comparable.
Gino's like the best coach of all time, period. Like his resume, I was looking at it. Like Dawn Staley is like a legend basketball coach. And then you go to Gino's. Now, Dawn did it all as a player too, right? Like crazy. 6-time NBA All-Star, WNBA 10th anniversary team, WNBA 15th anniversary team, Naismith College Player of the Year, #1 player of the year in high school, ACC Player of the Year. I mean, first round pick. Like she did it all in high school and coaching. Played professionally for 12 years. Yeah, 12 years. What a beast. She played professional while she was coaching at Temple. Wow. She coached at Temple from 2000 to 2008. And she was playing for the Charlotte Sting and the Houston Comets from 99 to 06.
Oh.
This is the perfect. Temple. As a very low-hanging Temple foot, like just this bottom of the barrel graduate. Make the move. You can go hire some assistant from, wherever, or hire a D2. I get it. They could be successful too, but I don't know. That's my first call is Dawn. Jimmy Morrissey's joining us today. I know we were long-winded. Jimmy's great interview with Jimmy. It's one of our longer ones, probably about 45 minutes or so. Could be wrong, but Jimmy's a great dude. What a stud, and love the guy from a person. His family's legendary, family of business in the Philadelphia area. My grandfather worked with Jimmy's grandfather. So really cool stuff there for me. And, it's above and beyond just a normal interview because Jimmy and I really know each other well. And I find those hard to do because I have to remove the things I already know about Jimmy and try to ask the same questions again for our listeners. So what an unbelievable story, how we went from a non-recruited offensive lineman to being in the NFL. The Senior Bowl story is crazy. Didn't even practice, played in the Senior Bowl. He showed up the morning of the Senior Bowl after like training. It's just some unbelievable nuggets if you like to hear about, what it really takes to play in the NFL. And that guy is going to play for a really long time. From a coach that I played for, he said that guy's going to play for 10 years in the league. That's the biggest ounce. That's the most respect you can get from somebody. So seventh round pick, I think he was. So unbelievable. Guys, shout out to our friends, Actions Over Words Apparel. They're always donating a part of what you pay to the charity of their choice. Fudge Kitchen, Shots and Giggles, Som Sleep, promo code Colin, SeatGeek, promo code Colin Thompson. Thank you everyone for your support. We're going to send it over to the Jimmy Morrissey interview. Temple, Iredon Staley, Philly media, fans, you guys will be okay. All right, guys, we got a friend of the program, someone I've been fortunate enough to get closer with over the years of playing pro ball, someone from the same kind of areas I'm from, Montgomery, Bucks County. Jimmy Morrissey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Colin. How are you doing?
Jimmy Morrissey of the Houston Texans. Now, when you hear that, and I'm doing well, thank you for asking. Are you like, you pinch yourself like I have through this whole process of like, holy cow, I'm in this league, I can't believe it?
Yeah, I do. It is like very rewarding to think about I'm living out my childhood dream right now. But not the I can't believe it, I feel like. More of like I thought I would be here kind of once I got to college. But more of like I want to be able to do more in this league.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome waking up and like talking to like my dad or like my friends. Like I'm kind of living out my dream.
No doubt, man. I hear you. We're in the same boat, and yeah, it's funny. I always thought be here too. And like you said, when college, I think people may take that the wrong way, but I think you get to college and you look around, you say, "Oh, I could do this." There's a period of time for that. Was there a period of time for you that you remember, like, all right, I can do this on a consistent basis, or it just kind of happened over time?
I think it was when I went to a position battle, my first spring ball. I started moving up the depth chart, and I mean, in high school, it's like, is there really a depth chart in high school? It's like you just know, like it's not like a thing where like you go into meetings and people are like names are up on the board. So probably my first spring ball in college when I redshirted and the depth chart started moving, and then I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, like if I win this job, I'll most likely be a 3 4 year starter at a Power Five school. And it's like, when's the last time a 4 year starter didn't at least get a shot in the NFL? Like at least
And
like a mini camp, you know what I mean? So that's probably when it really hit me. Like, man, I can do this.
I remember, if I look back, I wish I was a little calmer. I'm thinking, oh man, I'm not doing enough or whatever it was. I think it's a little bit different. Probably a tight end, not catching as many balls as maybe a guy who's going to be a draft pick or whatever. But I was like, I don't know if I have a shot at this. And then the phone started to ring, and that's kind of for me. And I'm like, all right, I think I'll be okay. But this is way too serious to start the show. Where are you at? What are you up to? Houston Texans. Houston's a great food city, man. I know you're going about and about tonight, but there's just so many great places to eat and hang out.
Yeah, it's Houston's awesome. I'm down here training, live here all year round. It's you can't beat the weather. I love the weather down here, especially this time of year. A lot better than back home, and it's kind of central to. It's not a bad flight really anywhere. Like it's not a terrible flight. So we have a good training staff here, our strength coaches, and I like the program they have. So live down here, and like you said, a lot of good food.
So why do you stay in Houston? A lot of players, migrate back to the Northeast, or they migrate back home, or they have a house somewhere else. Was it a competitive advantage reason why you're picking Houston? You like the training? You thought it was just a good place to just set your roots? Why Houston?
Yeah, I really like the people here at the organization. We have the, I mean, I will give this credit. Our ownership does a great job of hiring people, I think. Like our dietitians, our strength staff, our athletic trainers, they're all great people. I love being here. I have a couple close buddies on the team. They stay here all year round. And, it's like you can't, like I said, you can't beat the weather. Like while it's sunny and 70 outside right now, and I don't know what it is back in Philly, but
It's not
I,
nice.
I
Huh?
can I can go play golf whenever I want. I can go work out in the morning. So I like it here.
That's
People
great.
are really nice in Houston too.
Yeah, people are awesome in Houston. It's unique for those listening at home. Sometimes with players, you're trying to figure out, what you want to do. Like, do you go move home? Do you live in the city you're in? You sign a year-long lease. Like, for me, I was always in and out because my leases were short, furnished places, and I didn't know how long I was going to stay. If I knew in Carolina I was going to be there for 3 years, I would have probably invested in the whole situation and would have lived there and would have moved there. But it was a lot of moving pieces, more than I thought. I digress. Favorite places to eat in Houston? There's a lot of great places there, but where are your spots that you're going to all the time? Because I know you're out and about.
There's a lot of good places. I think Houston's really well known for their Tex-Mex, or at least that I've discovered. I love El Tiempo Cantina right on Westheimer. Um, I love Cadente, which is right by where I live. And the steaks down here are incredible. There's so many
Money.
steakhouses. And the O line, we would do a O line dinner every Friday. So we got to try. I got to try like a dozen plus steakhouses this off season or this season. And honestly, my most probably is Gatsby's, which I told you and Sydney's family about, which is right near me too on Montrose. It's been great, but I really haven't had like too many bad meals when I've been out. Like more of like, wow, this is now I know why Houston just has such great food.
Who organizes the O-line dinners and who pays for them?
So with our group, it kind of we were really tight O line group, and we were just like all friends talking. And I know it's been done in the past, and it's done on other teams, and kind of just the group threw it out there like, hey, we should do O line dinners. Yeah, we should do it. That sounds good. When should we do it? And then probably Titus Howard. You know, he's one of the more vocal leaders. He was just all set it up. Justin Britt was the first one to set it up. We went to Steak 48 for the first one, and the way we did it was oldest to youngest paid. So just the vets, and then get all the way down to the rookies. But before we got to the rookie dinner, we split, I think, one or two maybe, just because we ran out of guys.
There you go. So you guys aren't killing the rookies too bad. You know, that's
No, we aren't killing the rookies, and excuse me, it was like it's nice going to those steak dinners, and then it finally comes your turn to pay, and you're like, man, I guess I got to buck up for all this free steak dinners I was getting.
yeah. It all comes back around. It's the same price.
It
Um,
does.
but let's go back because you grew up, and this is the overview of your story, right, from the football perspective. Kind of grew up similar than I have in Montgomery County, Jersey Shore. High school football, the same kind of deal. Sal High School, great high school football in the area, great school. Walked on it, Pitt. It's like unbelievable journey. But like, go back. Like, I hate to be like, where'd you knew that football was right for you? Like, what'd you do? Youth sports. I don't want to give you the generic question, but like your journey as a young athlete, like young person that kind of led you to kind of who you are today.
Yeah, my definitely my parents are responsible for a lot of it and the
Mhm.
way they raised me. My mom, from a young age, put me in every sport you could think of, playing at Huntington Valley local and Southampton I played in, which was Bucksco right
Yep.
there.
Hmm.
So I just grew up playing a lot of intramural leagues. I loved baseball growing up, loved football, basketball too. Wasn't really that good at it though. So got to LaSalle and I played football and I was freshman football. I got moved up to JV and varsity, which was like a big deal. You think it was just me and Matt McDermott who were the two biggest kids, so they moved us up. Uh, I didn't get any time at all. I didn't even dress. But then after my freshman year, I fractured a vertebrae and I got misdiagnosed where the doctor I went to told me uh, probably never going to play football again, like gave me the whole horror story. And then I went to another spine specialist, but this was like months after. And she told me, she was like, hey, like, just so you know, probably 2/3 of NFL offensive linemen have this. And she's like, just do some rehab, like you'll be fine. And I still have it today, like doesn't heal, it just gets scar tissued over. So, but I didn't try out for baseball. I had a hurt back and I just laid in bed like a lazy slob for the entire second half of my freshman career or freshman year. And then finally I did rehab, got back to playing sophomore year. But I mean, LaSalle's like they were too good at that point. It's like if I didn't make it freshman year and I didn't play baseball for more than a year, chances are I'm not making the team. So uh, I just didn't try out. I stuck to football. I trained all off season. I had a really good friend group. My sophomore year, I went in and I didn't dress for half the games on varsity. My sophomore year, just played JV, and then I told myself I was like, I'm not gonna let that ever happen again. And it really motivated me from a young age. Like I did not want to not even dress for a varsity game. That was kind of embarrassing for me. And I worked really hard all off season had a good group of guys that was on the O line. And I don't think we missed a day of weights at LaSalle. And then came back junior year, did well. Senior year, I thought I played well. Won the PCL championship, was like that's still one of the highlights of my football career against prep. And then ended ended up walking on at Pitt. And so I kind of once, I guess after my sophomore year, when I like was demoralized for not playing, like I thought like, oh man, I got moved up. I'm one of the biggest kids in my grade. Like I should be playing right now. This is kind of, and Matt McDermott was the other kid I got brought up with. He's still one of my best friends this day. Uh, he's great, and he excelled at that role early on. He was a heck of a player, but I just felt like I should be there with him. And I kind of once I made that commitment to like the off season workout program was really when I think I fell in love heavily with like the process and football, and that's kind of what got me.
Yeah, it's funny. Like it's always a negative or something that irks you that we all look back on and say, this is what made me turn the page. I was a freshman. I didn't make the varsity football team. I was absolutely livid, but it was single-handedly the best thing that ever happened to me. One, I would have got my ass kicked. Two, I was definitely not ready mentally and physically to play with the big boys. I would have been a punching bag, and been like,
that's what I was, a punching bag. That's why that vertebrae.
Yeah, dude. Like I wouldn't have been able to handle it. I even say it too. Like it's funny, like thinking about how that went for you, that little journey there from like freshman to senior. It's kind of this similar, assuming it went in a roundabout way, playing time wise for you at Pitt. And then like in the NFL, it's like, all right, 2-3 years, boom. Now I'm like starting and playing a lot of games. Like for me, it's almost the same journey I had in the NFL as I had in high school, as I had in youth sports. Like it's just taken me a little bit to get in the door and then find my footing and go. I would always, finish on a good note like I did in high school. And we had very similar kind of high school football journeys. But yeah, it's always unique to me to hear like what it was. But I'm so thankful I didn't come up. And I think too, playing freshman football and we were like you're younger than me, but we were like the last era of like, where there's still like process and Twitter was just created. It was a lot less flashier of these highlights and et cetera, where everyone thinks this happens overnight. Like I remember being like, this is the process. You play freshman football, then you play JV football, then you go to the weight room. Like it was completely normal and acceptable to do that, where you see freshmen now. And I know a few and coach a few where it's like, well, why am I not playing varsity? And it's like 30 of them that think that way. And I don't know if that's the healthiest thing for longevity, but that's a matter of fact. So now I was just curious to see what kind of spun you to go into it and go from there. Well, what happened? Why were you a walk-on? How does an NFL draft pick and captain of his college football team? We've had a few walk-on captains and draft picks come on the show before. There's very few of you. I'm lucky to be friends with a couple of them. But how did that work? What was your recruitment like?
I got my first offer was from Joe Susan, who's now at Rutgers. He was the head coach of Bucknell, and he offered me a half scholarship at Bucknell after my senior year. So going into my senior year, my junior summer, I did probably like 8 or 9. I think I did like 7 or 8 camps. I did 7. It was 3 big schools. I went to Temple. Temple was the first camp I went to, actually, which I have a good story about that. All right. So
that's
recruiting
probably 2014.
Yeah, 2014. No, 2015 summer.
Man, you would have came in at the perfect time. It would have been
Kyle
that
Friend,
line at Temple had some players on it like that played division. Matt Hennessy's starting the league. Like
Dean Dawkins was there.
Kyle Friend was a center before him, was on practice squads all over the NFL for years. Really good player. There's a lot of guys.
Kyle Friend was a counselor when I was there. But I remember. So I was talking to my dad, like it was going into the summer before my last year in high school, and we were just talking like, hey, how do we get recruited? And I'm my dad's only son. He hasn't been through this before. We don't really know too many people. Like, so my dad was like, oh, I was talking to people like we have to go to camps, and I was like, yeah, that's what I got to go to camps. I've never been to any. So I was only like receiving letters from like Ivy League and Patriot League schools. So I told him, I was like, let's just go to these camps. And my dad was like, why don't you like go to some bigger schools too? And I give my dad credit for helping me get to where I am today, because he helped me see the bigger vision before I could ever see it, or like really like make me believe in myself, I guess, as much as I should have at that time. So he was like, you pick your 4 schools to go to, I'll pick my 3 schools for you to go to. And I picked, I went to Harvard, Yale, Lehigh. Can you hear me, Colin?
I got you. Just start over there with Harvard, Yale, Lehigh.
Sorry. So I chose Harvard, Yale, Lehigh, and one other small school to go to, and my dad chose Temple, Pitt, and Boston College.
Nice.
And yeah, and so the first thing was Temple. So I go down, so I wake up. It's like Temple, you guys had a camp in May, at the end of May. So my sister had her graduation party from high school at her house. So I wake up the next morning and it was like my whole family, like they all had like a party the night before. So I was like, I'll just drive myself down to Temple, and do the camp and leave. And I got worked at Temple camp. I did terrible. Like and people don't believe me when I say this, like the talent in Philly and Jersey is insane. Like I went
Crazy.
to you go to the Temple camp, all the kids from Philly, all the kids from Jersey are there. And I looked terrible. I know I did. And I remember driving home from that camp, like, if I don't figure this out, I'm not even going to play Division 2 ball or like I was like, I'm not good enough to play this.
There was a
So the next,
culture. Sorry, I'm cut you off and go about the next
Mhm.
camp. There was a culture when Coach Rule was there. I know we're trying to get back to it. Like they have camp on Memorial Day. They wanted to see who cared and who showed up. So the Temple camps, I went there, got worked. A younger version of myself. Like, and now I think I went younger, 9th into 10th into 11th, something like that. Like crushed because like people really valued that camp. And back when we were there, Coach Rule, they firmly believe in you come to camp, we'll offer you camp, but we don't like offering guys that don't come to camp. And like that's our Temple guys. I was like, well, that's unique. Like I was kind of like roll my eyes at it. And then I look back and I'm like, well, that kid went to camp. Well, that kid went to camp. He was all conference. He was this. He was that. He had 2 stars. He had this. So, yeah, it's a unique place, but for sure. But continue on for your next camp.
and so those guys were were killing me. And I was
Yeah.
driving home and I was like, I got to get this figured out. My next camp was Pitt. And so we go out, or my dad and I head out to Pittsburgh together. And I remember the night before we ate at Fuel and Fuddle, which is this good bar in Pittsburgh right on campus. And I fired down a cheeseburger, fries, a milkshake, and wings the night before. And Colin, I strapped up every single D lineman I won against in the one-on-ones. I was putting on a clinic, but the thing was, I wasn't very fast, and
Doesn't matter.
I never ran a 40 in my life. So this is probably, I think, part of it. I
Come on,
got down
Sal.
and I got down into a guard stance, and I ran my 40. And I probably clocked. They said max 40. They would write when I was a counselor at Pitt was 5'9" when a kid would run anything over that. So that's probably what I ran. So I go. But after the camp, the O-line coach John Peterson literally comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, who are you?" And I told him, I was like, I'm Jimmy Morrissey. I go to a school named called LaSalle in Philly. I'm going into my senior year. He's like, "What's your GPA?" Like they didn't know anything about me. I paid to go to the camp. Like it wasn't like I was invited. And they ended up giving me like a 2-hour tour of the facility. I met Jim Chaney, the offensive coordinator, met Narduzzi, and we're having this conversation with John Peterson and my dad in his office. And he's like, 3 things are going to happen here. One, I'm going to call you tomorrow and I'm going to offer you a full ride to Pitt. He's like, 2, we're going to wait until your senior highlights come out and then we're going to offer you. Or 3, we're just going to see how this plays out, but chances are we still really want you. I think that was like how the 3 scenarios went. And like 2 of them, you're gonna get a scholarship. So I was like, all right, let's go. So I did the rest of the camp stuff. Did well. Boston College, they didn't really care that much. I don't think. I didn't really, and the other schools. So then I get done my senior year of highlights. Put them all together on Huddle. Send them out to schools. Thought I played well. Bucknell was the only school that really took the bait at first. They gave me a half scholarship after the season was over. Then Lehigh came around and Colgate at the same time. Both gave me half scholarships. And then Dartmouth hit me up. And I was talking to Dartmouth a lot. I took an unofficial to them. And then they scheduled me for an official visit. And everyone told me, like, hey, like, if you get an official visit at, like, Dartmouth, they offer you when you're there and they want you to commit. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take an official there. So I get called on Wednesday before my parents and I are going to leave on Friday to go to the official visit. And they say, hey, we have to cancel your visit. Sorry. So they canceled 2 days before. So I was heated. And so I called John Peterson, the offensive line coach at Pitt, who I haven't heard from for a couple months. Like he kind of told me like, hey, we think you're a little too slow, whatever it was. And I called him. I was like, hey, I have nowhere to go. I was like, I have these offers. I don't want to do it. I want to play big time ball. And is there any chance you'll offer me? He's like, I have 4 kids on scholarship right now in your class, and I don't have any more scholarships. But you can come up here and take a day visit and see if you want a preferred walk-on. Like, I would love to coach you. I think you're a hell of a player. So my parents and I, we head up, fell in love with the campus, fell in love with the coaches. They treated me like I wasn't a walk-on, even though I would be a walk-on. Told me like, hey man, like you're gonna have a fair shot. And I remember I went to Narduzzi's office and I was like, I want to come here and play. I know I have a preferred walk-on spot. I was like, will I get a fair shot to compete if I'm good enough? Like, I don't want to be backseated by somebody if you just offer a kid and they get like, I don't want politics to come into it. And he told me, he's like, I promise you, if you are good enough to play here, you will play. And I said, all right. I shook his hand and I went to Pitt.
When was your first game you started?
My redshirt freshman year, season opener.
So it took you redshirted. Obviously, you didn't play. I'll explain it to the folks at home here. And then the season opener. So that redshirt freshman year, what'd you come in as? What weight? And then what'd you start your first game as weight wise?
I came in my freshman year at a fat 300 pounds. I finished my senior year of high school at like 270. And everyone told me like, hey, if you want to go play Division I, you got to get to 300. So
it's a shame. You were perfect right there. I made the same mistake, brother.
Yeah, I ate myself. I thought I was eating. I mean, I'm still learning stuff today, but I thought I was eating right, and I put on a bunch of weight. I was strong, and then I got to Pitt, and by the end of my freshman year when I was redshirting, by bowl season, I was like 280. I shredded weight, and then by my first start, I probably got back up to like 294, 295. So I put on some better weight. But that redshirt year was so crucial for me. That was awesome. I had so much fun playing scout team and just like learning. It was a lot of fun.
Why was it so crucial?
It was kind of like my welcome to hey, welcome to college football. And it was also for I don't know, just to legitimize my belief that I could be there and that I belonged. I loved taking the scout team reps, unlike some of the guys that were above me who were like, oh, you can I made it my goal. Like if there was anybody that wanted to get subbed out in scout team, I was taking all the reps. And because all the older guys, they want to get subbed out, but I would never ask them to sub me out. So I would take their spot. And then I would by the end of the season, I was taking every single rep at center for the rest of the year. And I loved it. I was going against a really good defense. And then it gave me belief hey, I'm blocking these guys on scout team. I should be starting next year. And that's what really just steamrolled the whole thing.
Yeah, it's amazing what just one little mental nugget can do for you. You know, even this year, coming back from injury for me, I'm like, man, do I still have it? And then boom, made a nice catch and made some blocks. Like, okay, I still have it. Now there's still dark moments too now, but they happen all the time in football. So it's like recycle, get it out, and wait for the good ones. And then even back in the day, I remember we were in the Sugar Bowl and we're down and we're practicing in the Saints facility. And I was redshirted that year and come off a double broken foot and my heel's killing me at all these kind of just back in the day, 2013 New Year's. And I remember Jordan Reed just being like, dude, just go rip it up, man. Just trying to talk to me you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Take the scout team reps. You'll love it. And then boom, me and Skylar Morningweg had a career week in the Sugar Bowl. And absolutely just lit it up and completed a bunch of passes and had an absolute blast. And I'm like, all right, I'll be okay. And then, of course, I'd all unraveled not too long after that at Florida with a bunch of injuries. But, yeah, man, it's amazing. It's amazing the journey's looking back and going from there. So you're at Pitt. You're a walk-on. I have to ask, when does a transition happen from a walk-on to a scholarship player?
It was my second camp there. So I did camp, redshirted that year, spring ball. Started to compete for the starting center job because they moved our starting center over to guard, and then they opened up a competition. And I went in as the 4th string center, and then I get to camp and I'm splitting reps with one other guy for the starting spot. And then by the end of camp, the last week, I remember John Peterson met with me and my other buddy who I was competing with at the time for the center spot, and he was like, "Hey, just so you know, we're going to work you at center, Jimmy, and you, Connor, we're going to work you at guard." And that's when I kind of knew. I was like, hey, I won the job.
And they gave you scholarship on the spot. They do the whole run around in front of the team. I think I've seen the video.
Yeah, they did. So that they told me that probably 2 weeks before our first game against Youngstown State, our opener, and then that next week before, like our last week of camp, they had Max Brown was our quarterback, and he's a great dude. But they had like 3 fumbled snaps under center, like Max did. And I remember my one buddy coming up to me, and he was like, "Hey, like just so you know, like it looks like Max is like fumbling them on purpose." And Max was the only one that knew that was in on it. So then after they call up the team and Narduzzi's like yelling at me and Max, and he's like, "You guys don't know, we have a game in a week and you're fumbling snaps. Like, get on up here and take some CQ exchange in front of everybody." And like, I'm just a walk on. I have my head down. I'm like, I just want this job. I want to play. But like, I was so annoyed at Coach Narduzzi. I was like, is he kidding me right now? I was like, I already talked to Max. We said we're good. Like, we got him sorted out. And so I walk up in front of the team. I'm like, strap my helmet on, and Max hands me the ball. And then he just like yells like, "Woo!" And I read it, and it's like, "Congrats, Jimmy, you're on scholarship." And then the team mobbed me. So it was well done. I was expecting it during a meeting. I didn't expect it during a practice.
There you go. That's great. You can't beat that, though. I mean, you look back and you'll always smile on that. You'll always share that story with your family and your kids, and it's a big deal, man. It's college football's tough, and there's a million ways to do it. I encourage so many kids to walk on that want to play big time college ball, that maybe are a D1 AA, D2 for whatever reason. That's who's recruiting them. Do you agree, though? I think people don't understand that if you're a walk on, you have your shit together. I mean, obviously, your proof's in the pudding. Like you could play no matter what the position. Like if you're dialed in and you do all the little things right, and you're a program person, like you're either going to be a borderline starter, you're going to be a scholarship guy eventually, and then you could grow in the NFL from there. I firmly believe in walking on.
I really do. I think it taught me the game of football. I think teaches a ton of life lessons, but being a walk on really took it to a whole nother level because you're pretty much you're starting off your career as, I mean, it's the highest level of amateur. Well, I guess now it's not really amateur because your kids are getting paid, but at that time it was like the highest level of amateur football. And I'm starting my career, and I'm already starting at a school where they technically told me, "Hey, you're not good enough." And that's how I always took it, was like, no matter how great Coach Peterson was to me, Coach Narduzzi, the entire staff, like they loved me. I always had that in my head, like, hey, those guys up there, they don't think you're as good as your counterparts. Like they don't think you deserve to get your stipend check. They think you should be paying for your class. They think you should be paying to practice. And that like always stuck with me. And so like I still think that way to this day. Of like, hey, like there's people here that do not think you belong here. And it really goes back to like, who do you want to prove right and wrong? And for me, it's like, I think I belong here. So I always try to be like, well, I'll prove it to myself I belong here. And then, the results follow.
Yeah, it goes back to those like little moments that we were just talking about. We're like, all right, I can do this. I'm going to make this. We're going to be okay. All this work is worth it. Sacrifice.
And also, if you can walk onto a team, it's like you're literally walking into like best friends immediately. Great memories. Like even if you don't play, I doubt like even if you find kids who are like, it just wasn't for me. Like they stuck it out for a year, 2, 3 years, whatever it was. I doubt that you would hardly ever find someone who's like, oh, I regret walking on. It's like, no, you at least had the experience. You tried it, you did it, whatever. But it's an awesome time just to be on a football team, especially. And if you can walk on and do it, why not?
Exactly. It gives you a chance to mature too, whether you're physically immature, mentally immature, socially immature, whatever that is. Like it allows you to have a buffer too. And like, okay, like I can afford school. I have good enough grades to go here. Let me go to a place like Pitt where it launches me into my life crazy. Either I go 2 years there and leave or whatever. It's better than I'm going to go to this place, which they're all great in their own way. And then you got to try to transfer to Pitt if you start playing well. Like, I don't know. I'm for it, man. I've been fortunate enough to coach high school athletics, and I'm constantly, my biggest thing when I got to Florida was, this guy went to X Division III school in Pennsylvania and Y Division III school in Jersey and someplace in Maryland. Like those guys should be walked on here at University of Florida with me, running down on kickoff and getting scholarships and changing their life forever. Like that's how
saying you played football, and
it's amazing, but people don't know about it. It's not an advertised thing. Like it's like you're all state, but you're not big enough. So you're going to go play at the level that some recruiting coordinator at X Division 2 and Division 3 school thinks fits for you, instead of like, no, I have great grades and I can afford it, I'm going to go to a state school like Penn State and like whatever, be a teamer. I think there's a real avenue for it. Obviously, you do as well.
And there's so many examples too, like who have succeeded. They're endless, and guys that have made it. And my dad, I give my mom and dad a lot of credit for like my whole story kind of and where I am today, because they always push me. And like my dad and mom were both like, hey, like you can always transfer down to these FCS schools and call them to walk on. Like you can't just like say, hey, I don't enjoy Colgate, Lehigh, Bucknell, Dartmouth, whatever, and be like, oh, pick, can I come walk on? They're like, ah, you're a sophomore now. We don't really want you.
No, you got to have the support. You got to have, the foresight of like, all right, this is going to be the right decision for me. It may be shitty at the time. There may be some nerves like, am I good enough to play here? But no, it's always great to have a great support system for sure. All right. NFL wise, or let's go back to Pitt. What's your favorite moment at Pitt? Playing, off the field, practice? What you look back at Pitt football and say, that was a great day at Pitt football?
Definitely just with the boys hanging out in the locker room. We had so much fun in the locker room, just messing around. I say my favorite day at Pitt was when I called my mom and my dad and told them I was on scholarship. That was an emotional. That was just by myself outside in the parking lot, like off in like a corner. But man, a great day for Pitt football.
Big
I
win.
don't know. Yeah,
you guys had some big wins there.
We did. We had some. I remember like my freshman year would be Clemson when they won. Like I didn't travel for that. I wasn't traveling my freshman year.
Which is kind of fun in itself too, because you're hanging with all the boys back that aren't traveling and having a good weekend.
We're drinking Captain Morgan rum and Coke. I remember our dorm room used to reek of rum and Coke.
Now you can't even smell it.
Now I see a rum and Coke and I'm like, who in their right mind would drink that? No, probably Virginia Tech. In 2018, I think we broke the NCAA record for most. I think at the time it was the most productive offensive game in college. We averaged over 13 yards a play, and I think we ran for 500 yards. And that was a senior night where we had a special team, a lot of seniors. I played with 4 seniors on the O-line. Both of our running backs were seniors. So it meant a lot for that game.
That's great.
We did the Philly special against UCF when we broke their streak of winning with Kenny Pickett.
I love it. Yeah, Pickett. Tell me about Pickett. I mean, obviously he's a stud. He's a first-round pick. He's a leader. He's got all these great intangibles. I think he was committed to Temple at one point in time. He's a Jersey guy.
He was committed
tell me
to Temple.
about Pickett.
Kenny is amazing. I can't think of enough good things to say about him. Great teammate, even better friend. He's one of my closest friends, and he's awesome. He's one of the guys, like when you think of like a dream quarterback, like what kind of guy do you want in the locker room, in the huddle, like commanding the offense? Like Kenny has every one of those intangibles that you think of, and it helps that he's also a freak athlete and he makes a lot of impressive throws. He prepares like crazy. Kenny's awesome. So I can't say enough good things about him.
I think people don't talk enough, as we'll transition now to the NFL, about you guys being in the same facility as the Steelers and like how valuable that is, because it's there every day for the players. And Pitt, first off, like, all right, I see this, like I'm assuming walking by each other in the hallways, like you share the same meal room. Like there's actually more being shared than probably people understand.
Yeah. So it's if you can imagine, it's a big rectangle building and it's cut right in half. We share the same culinary staff. So all of our meals are prepared by the Steelers chef, which is incredible in college. And we don't share the same hallways, but during camp, we eat over there in their cafeteria. Some meals we'll just eat over there. So like sometimes you will be eating lunch and I don't know, Mr. Rooney will walk in and grab something to eat. Or like we share the same fields. So you go behind the facility, there's 4 fields and they have the first 2, we have the second 2. So we're doing 9-on-7 team run, whatever it is. And Mike Tomlin's hanging out with the backup quarterback saying, "What's up guys? How you doing?" Like shaking hands with everybody. And then we share the same indoor facility. So when it's raining, we practice in the morning. They practice in like the late morning, early afternoon. So we get done. I remember our team period one time. we were watching. It was like, I don't know if it was spring practice, or I mean, if it was bowl week or if it was bye week, but it was like the young guys went against each other in the scrimmage, and one of our walk-on receivers mossed one of our starting corners, I think it was, and like Juju Smith-Schuster, Big Ben, Marquise Pouncey, like made a dog pile in the end zone with like our guys. So it was cool, like where you would hang out on the balcony and watch the Steelers practice. And like they say, media is closed for practice. Media people would leave, pit players could stay and watch. It was really cool.
That's great. That's so unique and so much fun. And yeah, there's sometimes when you're like, when I do this and I try to be like personal and like trying to move like professional and try to move on to the next topic, but I'm like, sometimes I'm like, that's freaking awesome, man.
It's
Like,
awesome. We have a story. There was a kid that I think it was Marquez from Florida, really good corner for Pitt now. I think on his visit, Antonio Brown was like walking into the facility, and it was a couple like Florida guys on their visit, and they're like, "AB, what's up?" And AB was like, "What's up, man? How are you?" And like talked to him. He's taking like selfie videos with the guys, and like that's huge for a recruit. You're a 17, 16, 18-year-old kid in high school, and at the time, Antonio Brown was the number one, like if not the number one receiver in the league.
they would have found a way to make Bell, him, and all that work. Oh my God. Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it shows you how good Coach Tomlin is. But that's a side note.
Really good.
But I mean, again, because the guys that can't, for those listening at home, you have to, what's a 15-minute drive from campus, 15-minute drive from campus to the facility?
Yeah, 15 minutes on like a bad day. Usually
Yeah, so 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10.
You got to come down the hill. You got to go over the bridge. It's like, it's not normal. Like you go to Penn State or Florida or LSU had them wearing, like that's right there. Everything's built around football. And then you play at Heinz Field. So that's unique too. Playing on grass is tremendous. That's a whole nother discussion. All right. So we'll skip to the NFL here as we wrap things up. I think there's a pretty good Senior Bowl Jimmy Morrissey story, because one of my buddies who's a scout's like, dude, we called this guy up and he's like, and I'm a talker. So I talk to every scout and everybody that's in our building, like, hey, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about that guy? And everybody knows who Jimmy is, of course. And they're like, yeah, that dude just showed up on a whim to the Senior Bowl and played great. Can you talk about that story?
Yeah, so I coming out, I didn't think I had a good senior year. I had a really good junior year, and I thought like going into it, I was going to be like one of the top centers. And I was really disappointed with myself. I didn't get a Senior Bowl invite. And shout out to my agent, Jason Bernstein. He's awesome. And he was like, hey, I want you training down at Pensacola Exos. Like they do a great job. And also, if you get a late invite, they're only going to invite people that are in Pensacola because they don't want kids flying because of COVID. You can't get a test in time. You can only drive. He's like, I want you in Pensacola training there. And then if you get a late invite, you can just drive right over. So I was like, all right. So trained down Pensacola. I'm like waiting. Some kids drop out. They invite a different center. I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, what is? So then Friday, the game was on a Saturday. I get a call Friday. I get done my workout Friday morning on the field. And then I get a call at like, I don't know, 11. Hey, Jim, this is Jim Nagy, head of the Senior Bowl. Would want to know, like, would you want to come and play in tomorrow's game? And I was like, yeah, I'll be there. Hold on. So I packed an overnight bag. I hopped in my rental car, drove an hour and a half. I was there by like 1 o'clock, 2, whatever it was. Got my COVID test, met with Tony Sperano Jr., who was awesome.
Legend.
Great. He's a great coach.
You guys really cool with that?
and Pat Meyer, but I mean,
don't get mired in. My two boys. Yeah,
but
Panthers were in it.
Panthers were in it, so that was my team. So I met Coach Rule. I met all the guys. Like, hey, thank you for having me. They're like, hey, thanks for coming and helping us out. I was like, yeah, no problem. I mean, this is a win-win for everybody. And then I learned the offense. It was very simple. It was like I was fortunate to come from West Coast like terminology where it was like formation, number, word, like, you know what I mean? It was the same stuff. So I get to the game. I studied all night, just like tried to remember. It was 1 snap count or it was 2 snap counts. They gave base defense, no blitzes, no stunts. And then I played, started off at right guard, then I went left guard, then I went center for 3 quarters. And it was awesome. I played solid. I didn't play that well, but it had been over a month since I played my last football, and it was fun.
Legendary stuff, dude. That's great. That's a great, Pat Meyer and Tony Soprano Jr., two absolute characters, man. They're two of
Yeah.
my favorite guys. One, Tony's with the Giants, or was, or is. I don't know what's going on, and then Pat was with the Steelers again. I don't keep track of what they're doing right now, but I'll find out. They're great guys. All right, as we wrap things up, I mean, boom, drafted 7th round, man, like crazy. Talk about that day with your family.
It was we were down the shore. I had everyone down the shore.
So was I. I wasn't drafted. There's a big difference there, but we still partied. I mean,
Yeah,
who would have
exactly.
thought I was the first pick overall, man? Cape May, we were going crazy. Plus for the Giants too, so it was really fun.
Yeah. No, I was pumped. I thought it was going to be a great day, and I mean, I sound very selfish when I say this, but I thought I was going to get drafted higher, but I knew the reality of it. I didn't have as good of a senior year as I thought I should have. So day goes on, and it's a long day. I mean, you know it. It's like I have buddies come over my house. Draft starts at noon, I think. I think I got drafted at like 4:45 or something. So like we're hanging out all day, and like we're playing shuffleboard, like literally just trying to kill time, listening to music. And so finally my agent calls, a couple teams call, make free agency offers. I commit to the Giants. They gave me the best offer. So I was going to go to the Giants. And I remember I kind of broke down to my dad. I was like, man, I really thought I did enough to not be a walk-on again. I was like, it was just like hit me, like all the emotions came back of like how like I felt like ignored in high school. I was like, man, this really happening. I thought I had a good enough resume. And I know I sound very self-centered here when I'm talking like this, but these are just the emotions I was feeling. Like I thought I really did do enough, but I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to be a free agent. I'm going to the Giants. And so I walked downstairs, another center called me who I was friends with, who he was a free agent. And he was like, hey man, I guess we're going free agents now. I was like, yeah, I'm going to the Giants. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to the Lions. And when I heard his tone of voice, I was like, man, we sound so ungrateful right now. Like we're about to be in the NFL. Like we're going to be priority free agents. And that kind of like turned my attitude around where like something went off. Like, man, just be happy. Like this is insane. Like I'm literally going to be on an NFL team by the end of today. And sure enough, while I was on the phone with him, I got a 215 number. And I was like, no way. I was like, there's no way the Eagles are drafting me. They already drafted Landon Dickerson. And hey, Jimmy, this is Mike Mayock of the Las Vegas Raiders, because he's a Haverford guy. And I was like, Mr. Mayock, how are you? And he's like, we want to take you with the 2nd pick in the 7th round. And then it was awesome. It was fireworks.
Fireworks, man. That's great. Now, what did you guys do that night? Did you have a big time?
Yeah, we got after it, and then we went to Ocean Drive because it was COVID still, so like outdoor area, so they could fit everyone. And I mean, it's the off season really, so It wasn't that rowdy, but me and the boys, we had a good time.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, when we went, we shut down the Seaview, this local bar in Cape May, and stuffed the jukebox. And yeah, again, it's like off season, it's quiet, but it was great. I'll never forget the rest of my life. So let's fast forward to now. There's a lot happened between I guess as we wrap, what's going on now? You're in Houston. You've been part of a couple coaching staffs now. You're in with Coach Gruden and Mike Mayock with the Raiders. You get cut, claimed. How did that go down real quick, right?
Yeah. Practice squad, first year, week 7, agent calls me, hey, do you want to make the move to Houston? They want to activate you. So I said, yeah, let's make the move to Houston. Pull me up there for a couple weeks. Started 4 games 2 years ago, my rookie year. Didn't do well. I was not ready to play. Last year, battled practice squad still. Justin Britt retires mid-season or early on in the season. Get elevated. Then I was the backup guy, and then I saw action in 2 games for guard and played pretty solid. And now hoping I get a shot to compete for that starting job this year.
What are you looking forward to most, the season ahead or the Houston Texans golf outing?
Golf outing is a close second. Oh, I'm pumped.
Freddie D is going to be listening to this. He's ready to go. They just bought a new house in Houston too, so we'll have to go break in the pool over there and hang out over there coming up here soon.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, tell me when you guys come down. I
will, man. I will. No, I appreciate you coming on. I know you got to head out soon. I got to head out too, but I just, I'm just jacked for you, man. What's the plans though moving forward for you? So you're grinding in Houston. OTAs come. You have anything planned for the summer? You just got engaged. Christ, that should have been the first one we talked about. I'm horrible, man. What's the plan
you're
for you
good.
and your wife for the wedding moving forward? Wife to be.
Next March in Boston.
Oh,
Boston's
man.
great. Should be perfect temperature. I'm not a heat guy. I don't want to be sweating in my tux, so I'm excited.
That's tremendous. The bagpipes, the Morrissey. Are you kidding me? Irish Catholic. It's going to be great. Oh, man. That's awesome. Boston's a great city. And then any plans,
city.
any vacations, any trips coming up?
I'm going to the PA meeting in Hawaii.
Oh, you got elected.
I didn't get elected, but I think all of our guys are not on the team anymore or just maybe not going. And Lester hit me up and he's like, hey, you want to go? And I said, of course I do. I'm interested. So
awesome. When is that? Coming up here, right?
Yeah, next week, 2 weeks.
Oh, man. Well, safe travels. We're going to have to follow up about that one. At least I will privately. I'm going to hear about that trip went.
Yeah, no doubt. Of course.
That's great. Jimmy Morrissey, Houston Texans offensive lineman, starter this year. Appreciate you coming on, buddy.
Thanks, Colin. Good talking to you.
You too.